Okay, let's start the deep dive. We're taking a concept that sounds uh, absolutely wild, analyzing a survival horror video game as a form of ghost tourism and seeing where the sources take us.
It sounds like a contradiction, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, video games are usually seen as pure escapism, fantasy,
Right.
but the Fatal Frame series, which, is also called Project Zero in some places, it somehow manages to tap into some of the deepest, most complex emotional and spiritual traditions of Japan.
So that's our mission today. We're diving deep into the cosmology and mechanics of this franchise. We're going to look at how its haunted places, its sacrificial rituals, are actually rooted in authentic Japanese religious traditions.
And our main source for this is some really fascinating work from the techno-philosopher and consultant Simone Puorto. It's from his guest chapter titled Fatal Frame: Ghost Tourism, Rituals, and Spirit Photography.
And this is going to be published soon, right?
That's right. It's for the upcoming academic book, Haunted and Ghost Tourism: Theory, Interpretation, and Implications. So we're getting a bit of a preview.
Perfect. So we're going to try and extract those surprising connections, between the game's core mechanics, like why you use a camera to fight ghosts, and these deep spiritual practices.
And show you how a digital space can, in a way, become a virtual pilgrimage site.
The first thing that really stands out with Fatal Frame is how different it feels from other horror games.
Oh, absolutely. The creator, Makoto Shibata, is known for this. The series focuses on this chilling emotional tone, this crushing atmosphere. It's not about constant jump scares.
And Shibata himself said that his own encounters with the uncanny really influenced the game's feel.
You can sense that. It's a very personal type of horror. And when you look at the game's architecture, the abandoned shrines, the ruined villages, it creates this emotional pull that you actually find in the real world.
So you're saying it taps into something real?
Exactly. Porto explains that the game's whole structure creates these modes of engagement that are really similar to the Thenatourism.
Thenatourism. That's dark tourism or ghost tourism.
Right. Even though the experience is purely digital, you're actively seeking out these sites that are tied to death and profound tragedy.
So it's literally digital dark tourism.
Functionally, yes. The emotional drive is the same as why people visit, say, a battlefield or a famously haunted hotel. It's this urge to confront and maybe commemorate a tragedy.
And that's a huge thing. This pursuit of the uncanny is a massive industry.
It's big business.
Yeah.
The sources note that in the U.S. alone, haunted attractions pull in something like $300 million a year.
Wow.
So this isn't just about entertainment. It turns this fascination with the uncanny into a kind of heritage making, and even provides economic support for these charged locations.
And the game is doing the same thing, but for its own digital ruined places.
And the critical piece of equipment in Fatal Frame, the thing that connects your digital action to all this spiritual tradition, is the Camera Obscura.
This is where it gets really interesting for me, because a camera isn't just some random weapon. It has this whole internal mythology.
It does. It was created by this fictional occult researcher, Dr. Kunihiko Asus,
who deliberately mixed Western photography with esoteric Japanese experimentation.
And we have to understand that its function is not passive at all. As the analysis details, the camera is what you'd call a threshold device.
A threshold device.
It doesn't just record ghosts. It's a ritual instrument. It makes that invisible line between worlds permeable. It forces these unstable presences of death to manifest, just for a moment.
Wait, so taking a picture isn't just self-defense, it's a ritual act.
In a sense, yeah. It changes the player from just being passive observer into an active mediator.
And the gameplay totally reinforces that. The camera's power, it actually gets stronger the closer the ghost is to you.
Right. You're rewarded for staring directly into the face of this thing that wants to destroy you. It forces this incredibly risky, direct confrontation.
So instead of running away, which is what most horror games tell you to do, you have to stand your ground and frame the shot.
And by fixing that presence on film, the act of photography becomes an intervention. It's how you pacify or disperse the spirit.
And this whole idea has real-world historical roots, doesn't it? It goes back to Victorian spiritualism.
Oh, absolutely. The birth of spirit photography. You have to think about early photography daguerreotypes, the long exposures, the chemical processes.
They are unpredictable.
Very. And they often produce what looked like accidental apparitions, faint shapes, ghostly blurs in the background. And people who were dealing with immense loss from wars and pandemics saw these mechanical mistakes as proof.
Proof that the camera, because it was a neutral machine, could see things that our eyes can't.
That's the powerful idea. And that pattern just continues right into the digital age. Think about all those blurry photos from smartphones that people take in supposedly haunted places. The Shinrei Sapporo.
It's the same belief, just with new technology.
Absolutely. Puorto's analysis also points out how even modern AI image generators are kind of blurring that line between what's optically captured and what's algorithmically imagined. The camera is still this mediating device.
The franchise even leaned into this directly. I'm thinking of the spin-off, Spirit Camera, back in 2012.
Right, on the Nintendo 3DS. It turned the console itself into a portable camera obscura. It had to physically move around, performing the same kind of ritual gestures that real ghost tourists use.
It totally merged the digital with the commemorative act.
So now that we have the tool, we have to look at the architecture it operates in. Let's get into the story of the first game, the Himuro Mansion.
This is foundational. The Himuro family weren't just living in a creepy house. They had a cosmological job to do.
A huge one. They were responsible for maintaining the boundary between our world and what the game calls Yomi no Kado.
The Gate of Yomi.
And Yomi here is really important. It's not a fiery hell. It's a realm of unresolved decay and profound impurity. The biggest threat is something called malice, or shuki.
Which is like a concentrated, toxic spiritual pollution that leaks out if the gate is breached.
And to stop that from happening, they performed the strangling ritual.
This is just terrifying. Every decade, they had to select a young girl, the Rope Shrine Maiden, through this horrible game of demon tag on a Goko.
The preparation for it is deeply disturbing. The chosen maiden was isolated for 3,669 days.
That's over 10 years.
10 years. To deliberately sever every single human attachment she could possibly have. Her body was being prepared to just absorb the malice, to become a living seal.
So the success of this entire cosmic ritual depended on her complete and total acceptance of her fate.
Which brings us to the calamity of 1837. The maiden at the time, Kiri Himuro, failed that one requirement.
She fell in love.
She developed feelings for an outsider who visited the mansion. And that single moment of human hesitation, that simple desire to live, that was enough to break everything.
It fractured the Holy Mirror, the ritual's main anchor. The Hellgate burst open. Malice flooded the mansion and killed over 1,000 people instantly.
Just a tragic aftermath. Kiri's soul splits in two and do. One part is pure, corrupting rage. The other is like a childlike protector. And the mansion gets locked in this traumatic loop, endlessly replaying that failed ritual.
And that's where the camera comes back in. Dr. Asho, the inventor, finds a piece of that shattered mirror and builds it into his prototype camera.
Which is the camera that the player character, Miku Hinasaki, finds when she's searching for her brother, Mafuyu.
Right, and Miku, who's sensitive to spirits, uses the camera to collect the rest of the mirror fragments. Restoring the mirror purifies Kiri, allowing her to finally accept her role and seal the gate.
But Mafuyu has to stay behind. He becomes his own kind of sacrifice to make sure the seal holds.
So that first game sets the pattern for the whole series. You have this sacred architecture, this machine designed to keep balance, and it doesn't break because of some external demon.
It always breaks under the pressure of the most human things. Love, grief, desire.
This really gets to the core of Simone Puorto's analysis, how the game's mechanics are basically digitized versions of these deep Japanese spiritual concepts.
We should start with Shinto, because that gives the game its atmospheric grammar.
Shinto is all about kami, right? These immanent spiritual presences in the landscape. And the goal is maintaining harmony.
And the opposite of harmony is kigare, impurity.
Okay.
Kigare comes from things like death, blood, intense grief. It's an atmospheric disturbance that poisons an environment. And the insight here is that the game's malice, shuki, is just a super concentrated form of kigare. It's spiritual toxicity.
So the camera obscura is the solution. When you take a picture, that flash of light.
You're performing a mechanical harai, a traditional Shinto purifying gesture. You're restoring balance to the space, even if it's just for a moment. The Holy Mirror was just the original instrument for that, and its shattering was the ultimate system failure.
Then you have this terrifying link to esoteric Buddhism, specifically the Shingon school.
Yes, in the extreme preparation of the maidens, Shingon has this concept Sokushin Jobutsu, which is about achieving Buddhahood in this very body in this lifetime.
And that's connected to Sokushin Butsu.
Exactly. The ritualized self-mummification that some ascetics in northern Japan practiced for centuries. It involved years of extreme discipline, diet, and then voluntary entombment.
And if they were successful, if the body was preserved.
They were believed to have attained Buddhahood and stabilized the boundary between the human and spiritual worlds. The parallel is brutal. The Shrine Maiden's decade of isolation, her physical preparation, it mirrors the discipline and the huge cosmological risk of Soku Shinbutsu.
If the ascetic failed, their body would release contamination. If the maiden fails, she unleashes malice. The spiritual stakes are identical.
And we also see the influence of Onmyu-do, the ancient Japanese system for understanding space and causality. The core idea is that space is never neutral. Places accumulate spiritual residue.
So that explains why the hallways in the game feel alive, why rooms loop around and shift.
The sources explain that these locations in Fatal Frame aren't just ruins, they're failed geomantic machines.
Failed geomantic machines.
The spiritual circuitry has collapsed. The shifting architecture isn't just a game trick to scare you. It's the tangible result of that geomantic failure.
It sounds like the whole game world is basically one big bardo, that unstable in-between state.
That is a perfect way to describe it. In Pure Land Buddhism, the bardo is that 49-day period after death where your consciousness is really vulnerable, where it can get trapped by unresolved emotions.
And the whole game is set in that suspended, liminal time. The ghosts are just stuck replaying their trauma over and over.
And finally, we have to touch on the darkest borrowing of all. The folklore of human pillars, or hitobashira.
Right.
This was the actual practice of immuring people, often women or other marginalized figures, inside the foundations of big structures, castles, bridges, dams.
And this was done to stabilize a construction site where things were going wrong, or to appease an angry local kami.
The game doesn't shy away from that brutal logic at all. The rope shrine maiden, the tattooed priestess from the second game, the shrine carpenters who are walled alive, they all follow the same calculus.
A body is exchanged for stability, for cosmological order.
The contract at the heart of Fatal Frame is cold and absolute. If the sacrifice is total, the place is stable. If human emotion gets in the way, the whole structure fails, and the architecture itself becomes hostile.
So this deep dive, drawing so much on Simone Puorto's analysis, really makes it clear that Fatal Frame is so much more than just a simple horror game.
It really operates as a kind of virtual pilgrimage. It guides you, the player, through these digital Shinrei Sapporo, these charged places where the sacred and the uncanny just completely overlap.
And it forces you to witness the aftermath, the residue of these catastrophic ritual failures.
When you lift that camera obscura, you're stepping into the role of the witness. You are engaging with this uneasy, charged landscape, just like a modern ghost tourist or a pilgrim would. You're trying to stabilize something that refuses to disappear.
And that persistence is everything. The game shows us that the boundary between our world and Yomi is only held in place by cold, necessary ritual. Whether it's the extreme discipline of Soku Shinbutsu or the brutal exchange of Hitobashira.
What's so striking is that the boundary is never broken by an external monster or some demon. It always collapses from within. The failure always starts with the most fundamentally human element there is, a simple, unextinguished desire to live or to love.
Which leaves you with a question, doesn't it? Is that desire the true source of all spiritual pollution? Something to mull over the next time you explore a haunted place, digital or otherwise?